Soul and his tank have a very close relationship.
Oh yeah. Hey, that helps.
100%, 100%.
I mean, you've been the longest lasting tank, ever. I mean, I've gone through many.
Number one, longevity.
That's hey. The seriously, the tenacity of a tank at any level. I mean, come on, it's a video game, right? So
Right.
there's only so much that any one person can put up with. It's like, oh, I'm tired of being in this role. I'm tired of playing this game. I'm tired of doing the same old thing and all that. Oh, I love how you have like the background. How you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I see the little Frostwolf puppy back there.
That's my Frostwolf pup. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that.
That was my Christmas present. I wanted a stuffed Alec plushie, and they didn't have it, so my wife bought me the Frostwolf pup because she knew it was Horde. She's like, well, at least she didn't buy me an Alliance thing.
That is darling.
And then this is my daughter's Lego set of all of her different types of Legos.
I was wondering what that was. I was like, how was that? That doesn't look like a dollhouse. It's like way too small to be like a dollhouse.
So this is like upstairs in my loft. So all I have up here is our computer, our piano, and like my daughter's Lego play area. So this is where like, you got to separate these things because, Legos are just a nightmare to step on. So we have it excluded from the rest of the house of like, this is a Lego workshop. And then, other toys can be played with elsewhere.
I used to love playing with Legos. It was my shit. I still have. Yeah. I haven't opened the box yet, but I have that. It's a Lego Bastion.
No kidding.
That I got from the Blizzard store. I was like, all right, I'm gonna pick this thing up because this thing is dope. And then one day I'm gonna
build Lego though, or is it the off brand?
Nope. It's legit Lego stuff. Kidding. Yeah, wow, dude. I was like, oh, my $20-something. Burp, swipe. Let's do this. Anyway, back to it. So, what were we saying? Like we come from different perspectives, kind of, sort of. We love, we love tanking and doing all that stuff. But for me, like, I feel like me, I identify myself as, hey, I'm a protection paladin. This is just who I am. This is what you do. But then I'll let you talk about like, how do you approach WoW, because you have every tank. So like what's kind of the story behind your motivations behind that?
So yeah, that's interesting. You do that you consider yourself like one spec of a class where, I call myself just a tank in general. I always have, my heart goes out to certain ones. Like Prot Warrior will always be my favorite. It's what I was born on, really. It's playing on vanilla. I have to mention it because you do, right? But yeah, it's kind of started on that. But I like to play something that keeps me engaged. Not every class for every expansion is the most engaging tank. Rip Guardian Druid so far this expansion.
Aww.
And super sad. But yeah, I just like to play tank classes. I do DPS. I do not heal at all. I think that is the Lord's work for healers. I can't do it. I've tried. It is beyond me. So I actually always appreciate more what a healer does than any other class. For me, I tank because it is, maybe I'm just a control freak is what it is, that I cannot DPS on any class that can tank because I always end up just going to the tank spec of it and playing that instead because it's just easier to control a group. And I hate wasting time. And so to see time inefficiencies that other tanks do just drives me insane.
So would you say that I don't know, the way that you're saying it, is it that you like love tanking, or is it more so you like to be successful at the things that you're doing, and tanking happens to be the thing that you're most successful at?
It's both, right? I do love tanking more than any other role, just because I like the idea of providing support to the group, of being able to help everyone, gather up all the mobs or whatever it is, right? Leading the most efficient routes, doing the little things, interrupting, stunning where it needs to be taken care of, those types of things. I appreciate that more. And I like the idea of, I don't know, the class fantasy of a tank, being right up there with the boss, just, holding everything down while you let all the other classes just concentrate on doing what they do best, right? Either it's DPS or, healing where it needs to be done. I think that's why I play tank. Like you said, it's kind of for both, really. It's I like both aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean, like this week, I lasted for like an hour and a half with my so-called tank strike. I was like, all right, let me remind. It's like it's like the occasional. Let me remind myself why I do what I do, and it's kind of the same thing for you. It's like, one, I just enjoy the feel of it more. I'd say I enjoy healing more than I do DPS, and to me, DPSing is just this foreign thing that is full of unjoy, and it puts me to sleep.
Unjoy.
Yeah. It just puts me to sleep. Although I know it's
none of that.
Although I know that these days there are so many more things that DPS and healers need to do, and I feel like some of the roles of a tank, the things that we need to worry about, there's less to worry about. That makes me a little bit sad, because these days it's like, okay, just make sure that we don't stack too many of our buffs and we're okay. In the meantime, everyone else is like pressing this button or going here to do this or engaging with this ad to do that, and they get to do like pretty fun things. And I want to do more of those fun things. It's just hard. Right. It's just that's the way these fights are designed these days. And right now it's just stay alive, and that's it. We don't even have to hold aggro anymore. It's just stay alive and interrupt things, and it's limited.
Sure.
But let's get to what I guess is the bulk of what I wanted us to talk about today, which is overall, how did we feel about season 2? So like Boda and or I call it Boda. They call it Bod, right?
I call it Boda because you call it Bod. See, Bod I can't do because I'm reminded of that that late 90s body spray. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but
Bod.
Every time anybody says Bod, I immediately think of that commercial, and I'm like, we're so past that. You call it Boda, I call it Boda. We got to include the Azeroth, right? You can't leave it off.
Yeah. I'm good with Boda.
Dazar'alor,
Boda and COS, Calling of Stratholme.
Crucible.
Calling of Stratholme, Court of Stars, Crucible of whatever it is. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll get into like the future of things. And for those folks who are going to be listening to this is just kind of our perspective as two fellow tanks. I come from the protection paladin side of things. Shad comes from like everything. He has experience with just about all the tanks, with the exception of, I guess, Guardian during this expansion, because you haven't put in much time on that, right?
I do have a Guardian at 370 item level. I have that, but the only thing that he ever does is runs the little Warfront campaigns. That's it.
Got to get that transmog, right?
Yeah, that's all I'm doing it for. Yeah, just transmog.
So, let's. I guess we'll keep it open. Like, what would be like what was the highlight? A highlight boss or a highlight moment, encounter, mechanic, something of Dazar'alor.
Let's talk about it, because talking about it is better than playing it, I guess.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding. Just harsh burn. So yeah, sorry.
I think that we're coming towards the end of the season, and I'm feeling it from the raid too. People are tired of it, and I get that. So when less people are showing up, I mean, just yesterday was the first time that we didn't raid because we didn't have enough people, and I think that's the first time that's happened in the past expansion and a half. Because even during downtime, people would show up, but between certain things about WoW that make it easier to just not play for a while, and just typical raid burnout, that kind of made that whole perfect storm of yesterday. So it was disappointing, but it wasn't unexpected.
It gets to the point. To be honest, I think before we get into like the boss specifics, I think what hurts this raid in particular, and just my opinion, and again, we got to caveat all this, right? That we're heroic level raiders. We're a curved guild. We don't do mythic except for the first boss, because that doesn't even really count. But because I know some people are gonna be like, but mythic, Boda is amazing, and these are all your problems, as they've pointed out in the past when we've had these kind of retrospectives. But for me personally, my favorite thing about raids and dungeons, right, is the experience of dungeon diving, for lack of a better word, right? It's getting in these neat little environments and kind of going through and figuring out your way, and it's the difference from the day-to-day game that you play in the open world. But since this is our home capital and we see it every single day that I just sit in it, that I wonder if there is an alliance difference where, like, to them, they're coming into an area that they don't see often, right? Like, sure, they come over here to do some world quests and whatnot, but for the most part, it's not really around the major capital city. But for us, like,
this is home. It's a house.
I spend hours at a time, like, looking for groups or trying to fill something, and I'm just like, here's where the blockade boss is, and I'm just standing here for an hour, just staring off into the sun. But,
well, yeah, you have a good point. I think there is going to be a difference. And now I know that there are people that have strong opinions about other parts about the raid. But talking about the environments, yeah, I'm sure that there is a difference between Alliance and Horde players and how they feel about it, because Alliance players, they see this as this foreign spot full of these troll people, island people, gross. Whereas for us, this is our house. This is the place that we've been, like, fighting for, and we otherwise sit our ass in here, like, for days on end, looking for or waiting for stuff to do, or standing by or queuing up for stuff and all that. So, but going back just a little bit to, hey, we're just heroic raiders and all that. I think it is important that we get more opinions, more voices out of those who play content that more people are familiar with. I mean, the Mythic Raiders are like the best of the best. They play better than I certainly do, and they perform at a different level. But it doesn't define.
They're the 1%, right?
Yeah. But they don't define. This is controversial, but they don't define WoW in the sense that this is what Blizzard balances everything around. Blizzard makes Mythic. They make hard content for people who love the hard content, but I think it's important that opinions be spoked of.
Spoken
from a perspective that more people can relate to. Those who struggle to get through, like, heroic, because I mean I see it all the time. People who are like, oh, we finally got curve, and I'm like, May 24th, 2019. Hey, you know what? That's awesome, because we're still a minority of the players, because there's a lot of people that just don't raid. They don't give a fuck about raiding or PvP, and they're like, yeah, pet battles, I'm all over that shit. That makes me nuts. And so I think it's important to hear from us too.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. Highlights. What did you like about Boda?
So what I do like most. Do you just want to? We can just talk about, like, specific fights for sure.
No, just go for it.
Okay. I think my favorite fight, just flat out, is Opulence. But again, there's some frustration on that, and we'll get to it. But it's just, maybe it's because of change of scenery. It's a different area than I'm used to seeing. But I always like bosses that split teams. I know that's not necessarily always. It's an old go-to with it. The developers do often, but I like the kind of idea of, like, heading off in our separate ways. You have kind of a little obstacle course, if you will, like to go through, and the team meets back up on the other side of it, and then the real fight can begin. I think that's super cool, and I love the idea of, like, all the little buffs that everyone can get, and you got to kind of pre-coordinate. I wish there was something else besides tanks, besides grab the shield one. But
the shield one is pretty boring. It's like,
it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is, and that's fine. But I do like that one. I also like it because some of the classes I play, I happen to, grip is, my favorite ability in the game. And when those ads come out and you can zip them all right back together, it's very satisfying gameplay to me. But I think overall, like, that's kind of my favorite fight of the expansion. expansion so far, really.
By contrast, Opulence to me is it's a series of like one small fight with going down the corridor, and then it's pretty dull afterwards because there's considerably less that I can do. I can throw down my consecrates if I spec for it to snare, but everyone's already doing snares, so I'm just watching them go slow, and I'm like, okay, is my consecrate going? Cool. Okay, great. Let me just stay alive and watch the debuff and make sure that that's going. But I think of the Opulence fight and I compare it to what's his name? Not Hodir. Thorim. The Thorim fight back in Ulduar days. Do you remember that fight?
I was not raiding at that time, so I've only done LFR, so I'm aware of it.
Okay, so the crash course on that is that you have two teams. One of them splits up. One team, but they do very different things. One team stays behind, and they're just tanking a series of ads that come into this arena like spot. And so it's like, okay, group one, you have a tank healer, some DPS, and you should have a certain kind of comp that will be able to deal with those kinds of ads. The other team is the one that's going down the corridor. So they're the only ones that are going down this short corridor, several short corridors, some small obstacles to overcome there. The thing I liked about that is that they were totally different things that you did, and that made it feel a bit more realistic. Something like this where we have an even split, and the only difference really is maybe one or two of the mechanics, because I finally went to the other side when I was healing it the other day. I was like, what's this? What's going on?
Now you know how easy we have it on that side.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, you guys don't have to do this fire thing at all? Wow. Of course, I died to that hex thing because I totally forgot about it. But apart from that, it was less exciting. It was still enjoyable because I do think that it helped split. To me, split up fights a little bit more. It helps to differentiate each of the individual people on our team, and it helps to identify even better their strengths or their weaknesses, mostly their weaknesses, because of the individual responsibility. Because before the end of MOP, when they started doing flex, we were a strict 10-man guild. We just didn't have the numbers to do 25 mans, so we just did 10s. We were able to do like the so-called heroic version, and we got we'd be able to get a little ways in. But with only 10 people, we had to struggle quite a bit with having to deal with mechanics that were less forgiving for a small team as opposed to a large team. And I know that with Flex, small teams are still feeling punished, but at least the kind of roster that we have these days, we're a lot more open to just bring people in, let people come and go as they please, and I appreciate that. But it feels like some of the balance there gets taken away because of it. So I think that's probably why you couldn't do a fight like Thorim in flex mode. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe that's just what they decided.
Yeah, it depends. I know what you're talking about. It's the gauntlet running. I think maybe the reason I like that is I'm a dungeon player by heart, right? I love the idea of just like nonstop, pack to pack to pack to pack, hit a boss, go again. And we'll get later into talking about the dungeons. But I like that idea, and you're right. It's boring. Maybe it's because it's just the one guy. Maybe that's why it's kind of lame.
I think it's just the one guy, and there isn't too much to look out for. I think about what's another fight that comes to mind is Kingarath, the dude that stands still in the Burning Throne. So there are weird things that go on, but then there are periods where the team needs to split up, and it's not nearly as critical to have like, okay, we got to have these certain people here, these certain people here. It's just, let's just have even DPS split up, so that way we can handle the stuff. And then of course a tank needs to be on either side so they can pick up those ads in case they're still alive, or usually your team, who is called Team Mongoose.
Futurama reference.
Funny enough, Team Mongoose is usually the higher performing team, and my team No Pants.
Oh, that's not true at all.
Yeah, I think I usually get one person, But then I think most of the time you have the better performing people, because at least on Kingaroth, you guys drop your bot way faster than we do. Like I'd say like 85% of the time.
That's fair. So normally yeah, it's very funny we talk about this. So for the team that I like to volunteer for the harder jobs. I think that's something that I like to challenge myself always. That's when we get to talking about Mythic Plus, that's why I like it, is it gives me an outlet to always get better. I consider myself to be a crappy player at this game, but I'm
You're
trying.
Not crappy.
Right?
Come on.
I'm always, compared to what some of these people are doing, I'm shocked sometimes we're watching the MDI or you're watching the stream of the World First Guilds. It's crazy how good their like Sko is amazing. Now all those guys out there who are just crushing it are just awesome at what they do, and I could never play at that level, but I'm always trying to get there, right? It's the journey of what can I do to make myself a better player, and that is actually why I play this game, right? Is it as simple as all this is of pushing a few buttons for a rotation and all that? There's always something to get better at, and that's what always keeps me engaged in WoW. So that really just keeps me focused on this game. But for the players, it's mainly because our healer Mary likes to play on my side, and I just think he's the best. So I think people just kind of generally kind of flow in our direction, because they're the ones who want to make the effort of like, yes, I want to do that harder thing to do, like ENR back in Antorus. When you had to split the teams and they had to go to different angles, I always took the team that had to do who had to run the further route, right? Just because it's just the little bit extra to do. So you kind of volunteer you get those players that they want to try to, I'm not gonna say make more of themselves, but they want to challenge themselves.
I find that interesting, because I mean I noticed that it's like, hey Shad, you want to do this? Oh yeah, absolutely. I love doing this, and that's and I know that's with some effort. Yeah, I'll be able to handle I'll be able to handle most things too. But coming from the pseudo guild lead, raid lead kind of spot, and you do a lot of that these days too. I think it's important to let folks stretch their wings and be the kind of player that they want to be. It wouldn't be a good idea for me to tell you, no, I want to do the hard thing because I want to, I don't know, there's some sense of pride. I want to flex my EP or something like that. Like from my stance, it's like I just want to see the team get through.
Right.
I wanted to survive. That's the most important thing, because that'll make people happy, and by proxy, that's going to make me happy. So, it's also funny. Like you've tanked with the guild for like years now, and you've noticed 5 years. That's so long,
isn't it? Like whatever the initial part of, I came on in the. Right when you guys, I think you did your first like clear or two of HFC, and then I don't know whatever happened there, and I was like, you happened to post it out looking for a tank, and I was like, I want to finally raid tank. I normally haven't, right? I've always pugged dungeons. That's been the thing. I've been sporadically in and out of guilds, but for me, it was just finding a group that one worked at a time that I could do, and two, clearing, just finding my way in. I mean, that's a topic that I think really is missing out of this, is the process of actually finding a guild, not a world first or whatever. They got their own websites, or what? People don't have websites anymore. Anyway, however people are recruiting,
they use Twitter and all that and whatnot these days. Whatever.
But for your basic like semi-casual guild, I still think the recruiting process for guild is very difficult. It's much harder to find a guild than I thought it would be, to be honest.
You're using such nice words, because I'm a big fan of of being able to find and create your own community and all that. Like the guild finder's like shit, and there's there are some improvements coming in 8.2, but they're not really. They just kind of funked with the UI a little bit to make it slightly easier for you to list and find groups. You can filter people by item level, whoop-de-doo, but it still does nothing to help people to help guilds find people. and it pretty much hasn't improved on the ability for people to find guilds. So it's pretty rough. Wasn't it me?
That's frustrating.
Wasn't it me that invited you? Or was it someone else?
I'm not sure if it's you or if your wife happened to be on at the time and got you, but somebody posted in like general chat, and I was like, "Hey, your times work. Do you need a tank?" And then you mentioned something about it, like, "Oh, we're kind of in a spot, but if you'd like to come, by all means." And
I think it was
I will
me.
do it. Sign up.
No, yeah. I think it was me. Oh God, what best decision of my WoW career?
By pure luck, you happened to post at the right time where I was just staring at general chat and perusing forums and Reddit for guild recruits of like looking for this one specific time.
And that sucks that you gotta that it depends on so much luck to find that right guild. You know, it'd be so much better if there was some cool way to search, or if the community tool was just a lot better and people can find their community tool. Man,
I still feel bad for you. Had such high hopes for
I had really high hopes for it, and it disappointed me. I was really hoping that this 8.2 thing, like this whole search option, I'll probably talk about it, at some point. I was hoping that it would apply to communities, but it only applies to guilds, and it makes it so weak because it's just restricted to such a small segment of the players, and I'd love for it to be so much more than that. It's a bummer. Oh well,
that's a shame.
We were talking about Boda at one point.
Yeah, let's go full circle again. Sorry for the rambling nature of this. Just we're just having around having a chat, right?
Yeah, we're just chatting.
So, Opulence is my favorite fight. It's just for personal reasons. I still think the most engaging fight is actually just Grong. I think the dynamic tank swaps in there for switching between debuffs is what I like. It keeps you on your toes, right? You're looking at the cast bar. When are these spells coming up? That's the most engaging fight there really is for a tank in this entire raid, in my opinion, besides the just trying to stay alive. But dealing mechanics wise, I think Grong has the most interesting dynamic between the two tanks.
I think that's really close. I think that there is a lot of interaction between us. What throws me off sometimes is when
what throws you?
So clever. What does mess with me a little bit is when the interrupt happens and the boss does his tantrum, when it's like, okay, I'm planning this, I'm telegraphing this, okay, it's my turn, 3, 2, tantrum up, or he's about to do the whole sequence, or he's in the middle of it, and then I pop cooldowns or something like that because I'm getting ready for that big throw, and then tantrum. But then he does it anyway. I'm like, I don't have anything. Son of a bitch. So
it's super. Yeah, the glitchiness is really bad, right? That's on them that it happens that way. That the tantrum interrupt does or doesn't make him stop his mechanics is very frustrating to deal with.
That part is a little weird. I mean, thankfully, like after the first clear or so, once we're able to get just a little bit more gear, it mostly negated those little flubs. So that I don't mind so much, but it was still like, hey, dude. But I know that when we were first progressing on that boss on heroic, I was really undergeared. I stayed undergeared until my favorite boss in that raid, which was Conclave. Conclave was my favorite. To me, that's the most engaging fight because, at least at the time, I was constantly dying. I was constantly like in danger, chaining cooldowns, popping whatever I had at the time, and it just wasn't enough. Like the debuffs, 2 stacks of that claw poison, that physical debuff was too much for me. Tanking Akunda was too much for me, and I was like, oh my god, this is so frustrating. But then and I straight up needed to get gear. But on top of that, I did like the engagement between the two tanks. It would have been so much more if we didn't have Whatsa. If we didn't have Whatsa taunting and doing that sort of thing, we would have we would be approaching that fight very different. I mean, hell, same with the first boss. As boring as that is, it's made boring because we add that third tank. You know, if it wasn't for tech for that fight, if it wasn't for Whatsa, who's a paladin on Conclave, we would be. I think that we would be talking about that fight a lot differently.
No, I agree entirely. That's actually a really good point. Is that there are two fights in this raid that I'm not going to say require, but are very important to either one, have a third tank, or have somebody to actually a melee to do a taunt, right? It's not required, but maybe it is. I still, to be honest, again, I'm not the world's greatest tank. That first boss, if you're doing it with just the two tanks, I don't understand how you drop the debuff without like certain classes that can do it better, right? A monk can, you can drop your stuff and you can just parry the heck out of it, or on a DK you could blow your rune weapon to just parry it again and to not get it, or a warrior you can jump out. But I still don't understand how that fight is supposed to work if you really legit only had the two tanks. It boggles the mind, and I don't like either on when we get to the Conclave, which is a great fight, that the way you have to swap when they pass, the DPS loss when they're basically almost immune when they're too close to each other, that you have to have someone just take that one melee hit to reset that stack.
It makes life so much easier that we can because otherwise it's a really haphazard break in DPS as we're swapping. I mean, it's not unlike Coven in Antaurus, so it's not unlike that, but it just, I don't know, this feels different because at the same time, like we're getting our asses handed to us. Whereas with Coven, it was the fire chick that just did a much stronger attack whenever she did her, but that was like on a certain cooldown. It was predictable. We knew when it was coming. If we didn't, and sometimes I forget, like I'll get blasted. But with Conclave, the whole stacking, the whole stacking of that buff, it still gets dangerous. But there isn't just one, but two things to worry about. It's both the attack speed increase as well as that cleave / debuff that Kimble does, and that could be a big pain in the butt. That requires a lot of timing and a lot of different sorts of coordination, or you just have what's a taunt and take a couple hits and like there we go. We can get through this with much less trouble. Even then, though, I still found that to be like a super fun fight because for the most part we're kind of moving all over the place. We're keeping an eye on debuffs. We're calling out. Lots of communication is going out to either swap or to have what's a taunt or to tell people, hey, go for this target now, which still kind of baffles me. That baffles me from a leader standpoint. It's like you guys should know going through these motions, tens of times, dozens of times, y'all should know when to switch to like the right target and to not fall asleep and go for this target that is now vulnerable, unlike the other one that is not. I don't know. That still baffles me, and I guess those people are falling asleep. Maybe they feel the same way I do, but they just put up with DPS anyway. I don't know, but
it's funneling as it is, right? Like everybody, they got a tunnel, and we're at this point in time where people are transitioning into playing some alts they want, see if there's anything else they want to do, right? I still think that people are paying attention to what they're doing because they're focused on what do I got to do next. I'm working through my rotation still, so maybe they just kind of lose sight of that. To be honest, I don't know. That's something that I'm we play tanks, like the main priority target. That's just a bit part of the job, I guess.
Yeah. Oh well.
It is what it is. Yeah, I wish there's more. Yeah, that fight is just weird because the timing is all set on real tight timers, and I think that's the more hectic situation. And it is on heroic specifically, if when a boss dies and they do that massive debuff to the raid and the healing is too much, so you either you gotta push through and do it at certain times, or you set the whole fight back. And I think that's one thing I want to get into that I don't like, that happens many times in this, is a stop DPS call.
I was just about to bring that up.
Hate it. I hate that type of gameplay of where you literally take your hands off the keyboard and you're just waiting. It's ridiculous.
We've gotten that a lot in this raid. We had that with Blockade. We've had that with Opulence. We've had that with Conclave.
Yep.
And I don't know what else comes to mind. But yeah, the whole idea of having to either to tell the team, hey, you know what, you're not doing enough. You got to push it harder, or we need to sit on our hands for like a few moments because we need to wait for another mechanic to go by and then we can do it.
Yeah, a few moments. Sometimes it's like 20 to 30 seconds, which in this game is a lifetime.
Yeah. So something like Opulence is a real turnoff. The whole idea of they need to die at the same time, otherwise shit happens. That really sucks. Blockade is. It's basically the same thing, but at least that's only like one part of the fight, and then that's like the arguably easier part of the fight, sure. Because at least the second part is fun. Actually, I did like the Blockade fight. I mean, partially because we like got it down so quickly, and so that felt pretty good. But it felt cool as a tank to be like, all right, you need to go engage that ad, but it's not necessarily you got to go tank it, but you do have that debuff that's extremely beneficial. And as the fight went on, I also liked how things got so hectic that it's like, okay, we need to plant the ad placement in such a way that we can have both of them kind of close together, so that way when one of us tanks goes back there, we can debuff like two of them. Then it's like, oh, now it's like super amazing. Now our role is even more important. I love that. Things like that are cool. Things that make me tell the team, stop what you're doing, AFK, do all that stuff. It's jarring for them, I'm sure, because I remember like there were a couple of Opulence fights where someone would be like, oh shit, the Ruby, you know, the red debuff fell off because I stopped DPS, and I didn't really think of it. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Okay, now we're fucked.
Yeah, that kind of gameplay isn't rewarding at all, right? I feel people always want to try their best, right? They always want to give it their all, and to have someone push and try hard, and do the time to whatever it takes to practice or get better or use pots for anything, like, and then to be like, hold off, stop doing all of that, just go to a bathroom break for the next 30 seconds while we just wait for like the other team to catch up or whatever it is, or we have to wait for this timer to go off. It's really unsatisfying.
No, that makes a good point, because it does things psychologically to the team as well. It's like, one person who, like the tryhard would be like, okay, I'm doing my best, and now I got to hold back. What's he or she thinking of the people who are not performing as well? Because, they might think to themselves, well, shoot, if tech was doing more deeps, then we wouldn't need to worry about this, and we would be able to break through that threshold. And so having that sort of thing, like having that sort of friction, is necessary. It's a game. We still want to try to get through, and there are certain challenges that we're gonna run into no matter what. There's still gonna be that feeling, but the whole idea of of having to nail a certain bracket in order to get a boss mechanic to work the way that we want to, it's frustrating.
Yep.
Oh well.
What it is. That's rating in World of Warcraft right now.
It's been like that. I mean, I think I could probably think of at least one fight from every raid that had that. In this case, there were three though.
That's my point. Right? Is that, I mean, for HFC or, man, I can't think of, I'm sure there's a few in Legion by this point that probably had that issue, but for the most part, you could just keep progressing. I mean, every now and then there's like a timed event where you have to like, run over here, do this thing, like kill Jaina, right? Like you can't push through like the air raid phase and soaking all the Armageddons, but you could still push them to that phase faster. You were never penalized for having to like, nope. You got to that phase too fast, and now you're just going to have to sit around and wait. If it's built in as part of it, and that has its own challenges, but there's never you have to stop doing everything that you can do to play the game because you need to wait for this thing to happen.
I'm trying to think of Kill Jaden, and I know that there was a big penalty for taking too long because we would get an extra ad phase and all that stuff.
And I don't mind that. I do not mind if trying to push a player, they want to be better to get through things quicker, so it's like less healing intensive or whatever it is. That I never have problems with. It's the stopping. If you have to stop everything to make the fight easier, that it needs to be reworked. It's just not a good plan. I'm
pretty sure there's a couple people that are already typing in the comments being like, okay, here's the fight where...
Oh, I'm sure. Please do.
To do that.
Please do. I will say that I have a terrible memory for, one, what bosses' names are, what mechanics' names are. I learn it initially, and then it fades away and becomes like a describe feature for me of like, oh, it's bomby thing, or get behind the rock thing, or like, oh, it's the grip these guys together mechanic. Like that's all everything ever is to me. It becomes shorthand. I'm terrible at memorizing my own spell names. It's not something that ever like sticks to my brain. To me, it's all visual recognition and reacting to the scenario that's presented in front of me, not what specific spells or whatever. That just floats away from me.
You know what's funny is that like I'm sure you've noticed, I never pick up on what the abilities are called, what they're called, and I rely on the team to be like, all right, so you need to watch out for... Someone will link it in the chat below. Look out for this and this and this. This is how it works, but I don't know what it's called. Whatever. I can hold on to that for like an expansion at least, because at least I'm only retaining so much information. But yeah, once that expansion is over, it's like, okay, great, and I just kind of mentally bloop, throw that thing in the toilet and flush.
Why even save onto it? It's fine. So because this is what I learned with the guild, right? Because I'm a studier, right? So before raids come out, I still watch everything. I don't talk about it anymore, but our guild has a...
Are you cheating? You're not telling me.
That's not cheating. That's not cheating because it's beta. Things could change between beta and what they put on live, so it's not cheating at all, right? Right. If that's the case, people would stop watching all of your PTR videos because that's cheating. That's the same mentality. But our guild, just doesn't do that, right? They want to go in blind the first time and make fools of themselves, and that's fine. If once is enough for me. Of like, all right, did everybody have their fun time? Let's talk about these things. But you don't remember what like the name of a mechanic is. You remember the stand in the swirly thing. I could tell you like, oh yeah, it's Armageddon. Like stand in the Armageddon. What does that even mean? Who knows? But people know that when you see the swirly on the ground, stand in it until it explodes. All right, you can do that. So learning the names of things and using them doesn't really help anyone if you're on a lower end.
I'm sure that for the top end mythic guilds who are doing like 700 pulls on a boss, they know exactly what.
Oh yeah, they know what those things are called. These mechanics. 100%.
Absolutely, not little punks like this. But
yeah, that's fine.
Oh well. Let's see. Anything else on any other highlights or lowlights that come to mind in Boda?
Highlights or lowlights. I love the idea of the High Tinker Mekkatorque bot thing. By the way, the name of that mechanic for that being in a bot and disabling it is the anti-tampering protocol. Are you going to call it that? No. Yeah, that's what it's called. The anti-tampering protocol. I'm going to say it from now on just for fun, but like
that's way too many syllables, dude.
All right, time to initiate the anti-tampering protocol. Everyone get in your bots. It's stupid, but I love the idea of taking people and forcing them to go outside their comfort zone, right? And it took a lot to learn, and I like the progression level they do. In normal, everyone can see it, you can call it out, but in heroic, when you got to jump in your own bot and only bot people can see, how to disable that. I think we kind of found ways around it where you still have people who can kind of control that, and I do the same thing, right? I will immediately kind of take over and just yell other two people's until it's done, and then myself, because it's easier to assert yourself in that way.
Yeah, I think that's what made it easier for us. Yeah. It was a very social fight. That certain mechanic, because you had people were trying to help, but then as soon as a stronger voice was able to take over, it made the flow a lot easier. It shaved up a couple of seconds, which helped for like the tank debuff and all that other stuff. because before it was everyone trying to call out, trying to talk over each other, and there we had issues because people might be mishearing, or because people are trying to talk over each other. They're not able to hear at all. So sometimes we'll hit a wrong button. I mean, sometimes we'll hit a wrong button because we hit a wrong button, but
it happens.
But other times it'll be we heard someone else's color and we thought it was ours, and it's like, oh, whoops, shit. But I really liked that aspect of the fight because it put that responsibility onto this very temporary mini group. It's like, you guys are best friends now for the next 20 seconds or so. Don't fuck each other up. We've seen friendships fail and raids wipe because of those 100% occasions. But
or previous reasonings of going into it and having people on mute and not being able to hear them at all.
That was good.
But there are reasons, right? Like, so, like, we have a guildie named Primo who's been raiding with us for a long time. He's a very good player. I never heard him talk. He's been with us for years. I've never heard him talk until that fight, and I was like, "Damn, that's what you sound like, Primo." I had no idea.
He talks very, very rarely, and even then, he's very soft spoken. So you don't really you don't really get what's going on, or it's like, who was that again?
It was great to hear him. It brings the group together, and I liked it. I thought that was very nice.
Yeah, I wonder how people would do it otherwise. Do they just like type really quickly, or I don't know. Or just rely, I don't know, because DBM doesn't really communicate any of that stuff.
Don't know.
How did you guys do it, folks at home? Because I don't fucking.
I want to know. Did anyone else do it outside of voice comms? Is it possible? Heroic, I mean, obviously, normal. I think you can still do it. You could just have a guy assigned to like type it out. Maybe. But I'd be curious. Like heroic and up, is there a way to do it?
Just by typing it out.
Yeah, is it possible? Like, I'm sure it is, but I feel bad for the healers while just waiting around for the thing to go on.
The same people that, I don't know, they do all their spell casting by typing everything out. I don't know.
I guess.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of something that I just did not like about the raid.
Okay.
But if you want to go first, go for it.
Yeah, what I really don't like, two things. One, this will be funny for our guild, is the spell animations are bigger than you think. That is a huge problem in this entire expansion, really.
Lots of circles and swirlies, man.
Lots of circles and swirlies, but even like projectile mechanics, like the Buster Cannon, you can actually get hit while you're behind the boss because of how that works. I wish there was a way to refine that slightly better, but it is generally it's a kind of become almost a meme at this point that if somebody's like, I was outside of that, I just always say it's bigger than you think. It's how this game works.
From my observations, I've never gotten hit. I think I can count with one hand how many times I got hit by it, and I know that every time I did get hit by it, it was entirely my fault. But otherwise, I've always been able to thread it. Like I could be like pretty darn close, and I still wouldn't get hit by it. Maybe that. Every time that was just dumb luck, but I don't know. Like the hitbox is big enough that I can't see how you would get hit by a Buster Cannon, because he'll typically do a jump, and after he does a jump, you're running towards the boss, or you're making your way towards the boss, and so I don't know. Maybe it's like if like an enhanced shaman or a warrior, if they like do their intercept thing, are they too close to the boss in that case? And from that, once their intercept like animation is done, do they happen to be too far inside the boss's hitbox, and then they get hit by the Buster Cannon no matter what? Those are things that I don't know. Yeah, but my ass is just running there, and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
No, it's fair. And it makes you wonder, like, the perspectives that people learn, right? So we were kind of talking about this the other day of when you're playing your character, especially in Melee, right? And again, I have a bias against Melee. It's just my own personal thing. That how do you utilize that hitbox of that boss? I think players have been playing this game for a really long time are comfortable like standing like at that range where like I'm not actually doing anything. It looks like I'm swinging at air, but you're still making all those hits. But some people feel like they need to make that connection, I guess, in the game, right? Like as if there was a collision point for them. And unfortunately, the way a lot of these dungeons and raids are designed, that you can actually put yourself in a detriment, just by being that close. It can cause some issues.
Melee unfriendly. Gosh, Blizz.
Whatever.
I should do aren't you using the same camera angle that I'm using right now?
Mm-hmm.
So
I literally copy and pasted from your dynamic cam video the exact same settings.
So I wonder if that has a little bit to do with it, because I know that I could see more than I normally can because of the small shift. So that way I can see a little bit more of the boss, even though in the case of Mekkatorque, he's not that big. I figure that I should still be able to see everything, but I don't know. Maybe some players are just looking. They're just looking at the ground and not really paying attention.
Maybe they're playing in first person. Who knows?
They should definitely see it then.
You know what? Hang on. I'm doing it. I'm playing in first person the next raid. I'm gonna try to be in first person the entire time. I'm gonna tank in first person. I'm just curious. Now I want to do it for myself.
I'm trying to imagine how all that stuff's gonna be. Grong is gonna be fun. Having to look around for ads during the first boss, I'm sure that's going to be enjoyable.
Ads, right?
Or doing opulence. It's like when the boss is going to do like one of their big attacks. It's like, okay, are they facing me? I can't tell. You're like trying to look up at the boss. Is that the boss's face or is that the boss's butt?
All right, so 15 seconds later, you talked me out of it.
Those are the things that come to mind.
That didn't take very long at all, did it?
No. I think we already talked about most of the stuff that I really didn't like about the raid. The whole thing about having to stop DPS. That's probably the big one.
Having to stop DPS it feels bad, man.
I want to say I liked the Jaina fight, but there are things that kind of put me off about it.
Like the RNG about how that fight works.
It's mostly that big ice fall laser thing.
Yeah, the thing that cuts the room, right?
Yeah,
That specific mechanic is really annoying. Yeah, just because it's so random, and it's not even that it's random. Like it cutting the room in half, but how it does it, and like there's small gaps, and it's like to the left and to the right. If it was just a solid line, like her. Whatever her little pulse thing is she does, that might be okay. But it's so random how it's laid down. You're like, oh, why? Okay, and then it does so much damage if it hits you so hard. You penalize so much if you are on the wrong side for whatever reason, right? You could be actually laying down doing the mechanics, right? You're dropping off a bomb somewhere, or you get the avalanche as a tank, and you got to run, and you cut off just because you were doing the mechanic correctly. That doesn't feel good.
I think that's I don't know. I'm trying to think to myself, I'm sure that we could just kind of plan it better. I think that if people weren't constantly 40 yards away and had an easier time of going to the right spot, and we did improve the process a lot when we were doing the progression, by telling people, hey, don't be so close, or I'm sorry, don't be so far, and right when that attack would go out, or right when we would get the warning, we would immediately try to coordinate and get people moving. That's the most important thing. Don't get cut off, otherwise you're gonna get your ass beat.
I like that you call it coordinating. I'm just yelling into the microphone of follow me, I'm moving.
Yeah, I mean, being close to us is typically the safest place to be, unless for whatever reason, like one of us has avalanche, then we're running to Georgia or something. And that can kind of throw things off because it might be following the wrong person. Because I know that I've gotten myself cut off a couple of times. So I'm like, oh shit, I better freedom through this and not say anything. Hopefully no one's gonna notice. And sweet,
I always
no one
notice.
Noticed. Shut up, dude. Yeah, those little bits can get a little frustrating because we'll get cut off, especially Avalanche, because we'll get cut off, we'll be stuck with the boss, and then we're getting stacks and stacks and stacks of the heroic debuff. Not the freeze debuff, but the heroic one that just fucks us. So like at some, for whatever reason, any one of us would get 20 stacks of that thing when we're only supposed to take 10. We're like, hey dude, can you taunt when you can? I'm coming, man.
But even then, like the way it works out, sometimes like you're just standing there next to you, like I got 5 seconds to just keep holding it until I'm waiting for my timing of that. Timing of that debuff I felt was a little harsh. Like they could have taken 5 seconds off it.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, we got through it though, so it's hard to complain too much. If it was impossible because of it, then there's that. And I don't recall there ever being a nerf to that particular mechanic. There were other things for the raid.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, Jaina had a lot of nerfs, but I don't think that was one of them.
I don't recall. I also don't like how that fight ends randomly. I feel like it ends at a point that feels super unsatisfying. When we first killed the first time, I didn't know it actually stopped it 5-6%, whatever it is. It seemed to change constantly.
I remember. But it's on YouTube.
It's like literally piece that. Well, yeah, but I guess. I mean, when it happened, I was like, oh, we're done. Like I thought we were at 5%. I was like, we're gonna wipe at 5%, man. This is stupid. Mm-hmm. And then like, oh, the fight's over. And then she pieces out, and you're like, oh, we're done. I don't know.
I think it would have just been communicated better if it did end at like, 0.01%, and then she just ended the fight there.
Yeah, just fine. And maybe have her a build up of like her, make an event out of it. She could be saying like, you're stronger than I thought, or I'll come back again. Like,
she does kind of do that, but it happens so quick.
You.
She does it so quick, and since there's no cinematic, there's no cutscene or anything like that. I think that's what took the moment away. Because I mean, come on,
that's what it is.
But it's like, hey, you gave us a cutscene when transitioning to that second phase, which was an awesome transition. I think that was one of the coolest things that I've seen in a boss fight. Mm-hmm. But as for the end, it's like they could have just done like a quick 5-second. How dare you? I'll get you
maybe
next time, gadget.
Yeah. I mean, plus you could show her super cool spell animation of teleporting.
Yeah, we'd be able to see it firsthand as opposed to us like being locked on, like looking at our buttons and our recourse. It's like, okay, when's my next thing? Wait, what? Oh, it's over.
I'd just like to know how she teleports while in combat. I think a lot of people would like to figure that out.
It's like a mage version of like Bubble Hearthen or something. I don't know. That's what happens when you're a hero class,
That's
guess.
Fair. Her ice armor is better than most.
So what'd you think about COS?
Yeah, COS. I like the fights. I think the kind of getting used to how things work was very interesting.
You were frustrated. I could tell.
I'm super frustrated in that fight because once you can make things work, I think it's just keeping everyone in sync. That's what the whole fight is. The first boss, right? Let's talk about that one.
Right.
It's keeping everyone in sync, and I do like that. There's kind of ways to do it. That depending on if you want to do the crown or the gem or the trident or whatever, how it goes. I think it's interesting, and so the strategy we end up on is we will just keep both bosses the same one, and we'll just burn it twice. You just do the one, do the other, swap, and then we'll move to let's go crown, trident, then the little pearl or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our rotation. But there's just a lot of things in there that you can make the fight so much easier for yourself if you just put yourself like in a position, like move to the inside. What kills me about that fight that I don't like is I don't like having very strict interrupt rotations on multiple mobs at the same time. I think that's a rough mechanic to get by. It really is, especially when it's so punishing as if you let 2 interrupts slide by at the same time, the raid's done. I think that's harsh. I think that instead of a massive burst, you could do like a dot or something that maybe you could like, okay, well now we got to pop cooldown to get through this or something. But to miss 2 interrupts and be in quick succession as well, that you have to have many, 6 to 7 people really being able to push those interrupts or stuns or whatever they are, right? Because you can do other things. You don't have to just interrupt. It made it very frustrating that was the thing we were wiping on.
Did you contribute to doing interrupts during that fight?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
That's where I end up getting frustrated. So what I had to do is, I play a Blood DK now. Back when we were on Grong, I tried to play Vengeance Demon Hunter, the class I wanted to be. I wanted to be my main, and I keep getting pushed away because Blizzard's just not giving them any love.
I still say that you should just do what you want because right now we don't have a Demon Hunter. And that's a big DPS loss, man.
Ironically, we haven't won the entire expansion besides when I'm on one. No, and we'll get back and we can talk about this later of our mantras or how we feel, like our personal feelings when we're tanking. Mine is always, I want to do what's one, best for the raid. That's why I play all the tanks. And two, I want to do my job. I consider as a tank is to make the healer's life as easy as possible. And if I can see that I am struggling just to stay alive and playing the class as well as I could, I mean, I've done everything I can to figure out what I can do best. But just the limitations of what I'm given can be superseded by another class's abilities. Like when we got to Grong, Demon Hunter only has really the one. Firebrand is really the only big damage reduction you have on the character. So when you get the tossed, I have to do it the one time, and that's all I have. So when the next one comes through or whatever, so if I burn it during a tantrum, I'm like, well, there it goes. I don't have anything.
So so I think as a Demon Hunter, you can only do like every other one, and otherwise you just have Demon Spikes or something like that.
Well, Demon Spikes is just your active mitigation, and Metamorphosis isn't really a very good defensive cooldown at all. It just increases. It's like Last Stand, but without all the super cool things that Last Stand has now. Like you can put it to crit block nonstop, and Last Stand turned into is God mode at this point, and I love it to death. But that's all you have. It's meta's not even that good. It doesn't give you a leech like it used to. It doesn't give you increased armor. It's bad, right? And they're trying to fix it. But so I played on my Blood DK. That's my Mythic Plus character that I play. Who happen to be already super geared, because if you do the Mythic Plus route, gearing rain down on you if you're at a level where you can just do over 10s nonstop. But their kit is so much better equipped for that kind of thing, where if you're playing the right talents, I have so many defensive cooldowns. You could use Vamp Blood on every single throw. I could take all of them if I want to, because I have enough defensive cooldowns to make that work.
Cheater.
Yeah, but it's silly, right? The game shouldn't be. I'm not going to say anything about like nerfing Blood Decay or any other one, because most tanks have multiple defensive cooldowns. Right. Demon Hunter only has the one. It's stupid. If people want to say meta is the defensive cooldown, by all means, let me know. But I disagree entirely. That's a defensive cooldown. Firebrand is the only one, and it's a single target too, so it's not helpful in Mythic Plus, because you only do the one target does damage to. It should be something that you cast on yourself and like decreases all damage you take for 40 seconds. That'll be more in line with what every other tank has. And since Leech is a garbage stat thing now and barely useful, yeah, they need to give them some love on that front. Hopefully it's coming.
I wanted Leech to be good. It's a big shame that there's like nothing to do with it, and then it's like so central for what a Demon Hunter is, and it still sucks.
It's the reason at the end of Legion they were so good. It was so fun to play. That I mean, I understand that if you want that class to heal itself, and that's fine. Blood DK does it very, very well. It's built into their kit, and I mean Blood DK is not as OP as it was in Legion, because they kind of took some of that down and force you to have a little more reliance on a healer, but
they still have a really amazing utility. Lots of cooldowns. Grip is like
hey,
dope.
Vengeance Demon Hunter has really good utility too. Those AoE stuns and fears, and to have a CC that doesn't put you in combat is super cool. You're forced to be a Blood Elf, so you have your purge on you, and then you have your AoE purge because you have to be a Blood Elf. You don't have a choice. So removing magic debuffs isn't a thing really if you have a Demon Hunter in your group. And so I think the utility kit of a Demon Hunter is very good. It's just defensively, they just don't have enough pieces. I mean, you can leave their kit the way they want, but yeah, I almost either make Gluttony baseline and make you play around that. I mean, that was interesting. So I procced a free meta, so I'm just gonna sit back and kind of let your stuff restock. I mean, that worked fine in Legion. It wasn't a problem. But yeah, you're left to the point sometimes where you can have up to 5-6 seconds of just taking to the face.
Yeah, just nothing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can do about it. Even like you can't heal yourself enough to overcome that because you can't build up enough souls. So yeah, it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, it does kind of suck that I don't have that as a paladin. You don't have some of the cool things like super grips or being able to speed up the party and things like that. But I can easily count, at least with one hand, per raid, how many times I would prevent someone dying just because I'm like, oh, I can just heal this person up really quick, and then boom, they're at full life, and then and I'll usually hear someone say, hey, thanks for the lay on hands. I'm like, it wasn't a lay on hands, bitch. So that feels really cool. Being able to
hand of the protector. Is that what that is?
No, I'm just using my hand of the protector, and after I think it was 815 that changed it. That made the healing based on not my health but the actual target's health. Yeah. So if they're dying and I'm able to fire that thing off, it's a huge benefit for the healers. It saves them a cast or a cooldown or whatever. So I feel really good about that.
No, it's a good change.
So COS.
Back to COS.
Back to COS.
I'm trying to walk around the topic because I just don't want to talk about the end fight.
We're gonna talk about it.
I think my favorite thing about the trash coming up to the last boss is stupid, right? I don't like it. It forces you to use like the little tools that you get, but it's unsatisfying, and the cooldown on them isn't enough to actually use them the whole. So again, you're waiting for things to happen. Of like, well, I'm still waiting for that cooldown to use the crown again. To do the lightning.
Are you talking about during the trash or
just the trash? I mean, we'll get to the boss itself.
Yeah. I think it's just too much trash. I think it was. I think if it was like cut by like 30% or so, then it wouldn't feel so bad. But it's just a lot. Even though in the end it's not. It takes like 10 minutes to get through at most 10 minutes to get through that trash. It's still kind of a lot for the sake of trying to teach us how to use to teach us how to use these mechanics and all that. It seemed a little bit unnecessary, but I mean, for a short raid, I guess it is what it is. Because I also think to myself, Trial of Valor, the trash that the trash that takes you from like at the start of. Actually, no, the trash wasn't so bad. Yeah, trash was pretty short. I think like I think pound for pound, COS had more trash.
Probably does
than Trial of Valor did, if I'm recalling off the top of my head. But going down those, I guess it's that stretch. Like after you take out Odin, you're teleported like right outside of Helia's house, whatever, before you go into Helheim, and like all that whole gauntlet of dudes that you go through, that's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's just not as long or punishing, as,
and it was, COS. It wasn't right. It wasn't punished. You're not put in a situation where an ad simply won't die because you're waiting on a cooldown for something to happen. You can still get down. Maybe that's the most frustrating thing. Is like see that guy at 1 health, and you're like,
come on,
nothing you can do.
Someone hit it. Someone hit it.
Checking your watch. And you're like, what's going on here? And somebody's like, oh, I forgot to go get it. Yeah, that kind of stuff's lame. I love the atmosphere of when you're going through the trash. The environment is super cool. It's creepy and weird and gross, and I love it.
The rectum of Stormsong Valley.
Why'd you gotta call it that?
Because it is.
Man. Well, now I hate it.
Well, good. Well, hey, good thing WoW doesn't have like smell-o-vision.
That's fair. But like the old god thing, I love it. It's super weird and gross, and I love it. So that was neat. So again, it's the environment. So I do enjoy that. I think that's cool. When you get to the boss, I don't think the mechanics of the boss necessarily are that punishing. I think the tank interaction I think is very neat. I love the idea of getting a debuff where you a reverse taunt.
Yeah, where things like fixate towards you. I think
that's very interesting.
It was a little unwieldy during second phase when we needed to do swaps and stuff, because again, it goes to the swap in Coven and Conclave, where if we don't do swaps fast enough, you're gonna run into like boss immunity, and that's and that's always really frustrating. I would rather see. I'm trying to remember what the debuff is off the top of my head, but I think it's just damage reduction to the boss, and I'm not fond of that. I would prefer something like increased damage taken. Like these guys will fuck you up if you try to hold on to them, because there's no alternative to it. Because I'm thinking in the future too. Like one day when we're on like the 12th expansion, we're gonna come in here, we're gonna try to do stuff. And it's going to be a little unwieldy to get stuff done, because we're going to have these mobs on us that can't die without using a certain mechanic.
Right, and you can't pick it up anyways because you're in a tank spec.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a bit weird. So it's those mechanics that I'm not fond of. I'd rather have it just be okay. The boss will do hella more damage if they have one of those guardians nearby. So it's like, oh, for every guardian that's near you, it's like 50% increased damage. And so if you have two of them, you're gonna get fucked up. But in the meantime, you can at least kind of cleave them together. You know, I'm sure that the eggheads over at Blizzard, experimented with how that would work. It's like, okay, should we do one way or the other? Let's do the other. I just don't prefer this method.
That's fair. So that, by the way, that's called Touch of the End, the name of that debuff.
Oh, great.
No, never heard of that. I think that is an issue that has plagued us in these last couple raids with Boda and COS is the I'm going to go take these ads or this mob and I'm going to go sit in the truck by myself while everybody's doing something. And your DPS or whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter on it, right?
What you're Conclave doing doesn't matter. In this case, it's
Rastakhan with one Samdi. Like what you're only just keeping him away. Nothing else you're doing is contributing to anything. Just keeping him away.
Keep him away. Stay alive. That's it.
Yeah, it feels bad, man.
Well, I would say that with what's the dude's name? Unat. I'd say with the Unat fight, at the very least, there's that whole mechanic of the lower health the ad has, the less damage they do. So you're at least compelled to be like, okay, I'm at least gonna press buttons so that they're at least doing less damage. But then it gets weird because after a while, once I get them to low enough health, then I can kind of ease off because I benefit from taking less damage.
Right, but therein lies a problem that if people are kind of helping you, or if somebody throws dots on, right, they're trying to pad meters or whatever it is, and you get to the point where like you've killed them too much now because when they go to zero health,
then they're going to heal back up, and it's like
they're going to heal back up. But I mean, as a tank, that your resource and everything is built around you continuing to do your rotation. So certain classes, like as a Blood DK, I can't stop. Like I need to keep everything, all the plates spinning, because if I don't get enough runic power or I have to do certain things in order to at least keep up my bone shield charges, whatever it is. Like I have to keep doing my rotation, otherwise I'll just flat out die. I need it in order to cast my abilities to keep me alive.
Well, I am punished for not pressing buttons, but not nearly to the degree of the rage generators, the runic power generators, because at worst, like my Shield of the Righteous cooldown will come back slower. By maybe like 40%, it'll be like 40% slower, which is kind of significant. But if I'm prepared for it, then I'm fine because I still have other things that I can press. I can still self heal. I'm still okay. And sometimes I'll have like certain procs going that will make it that'll make it come back faster too. So it's not so bad for me. But I totally get it from your guys' standpoint. It does suck when you can't do anything.
Yeah, my class is built on it that. I have to build up this resource and I can heal myself from it and things. So it's built in. So I have to keep going.
But that's why it's also important for DPS to, when it's time to stop DPS for whatever reason. Even I know that we don't like doing it, but since we have to deal with it, it's just really important that they really stop DPS. Because some of us need to keep our shit going, or in the case of Opulence, we still need to at least get that debuff building up without accidentally killing the ad or the boss or whatever. But that's how that goes. But I found the fight frustrating from the standpoint of we need to do so much to control DPS, and that's been the recurring theme that we need to have a certain amount of DPS. Otherwise, we'll run into problems, or we're running too short on DPS and we're running into problems. It's a frustrating thing that we need to control it. Instead of doing our best at performing well, we need to do our best within certain windows.
No, I agree. I'm not against DPS checks. I'll say that. I don't mind actual DPS checks. Actually, those are always some of my favorite because it's kind of a little chance to practice as long as there's enough bosses in the raid to do it. But yeah, like you said, that it's almost like a DPS check of expectations. It's like hold whatever you thought you were doing at the door because we're gonna need to hold off here. And those don't feel good, and there's one of those in this fight where you gotta all right, hold off for a second. wait till that crown comes back off cooldown because you did too good in the previous phase, so now we got there too fast.
Yeah.
That's maybe that's the way to fix that fight, is you change how fast the cooldown on all the little items is based on like how quickly or how fast, based off missing health from Unat or something like that, speeds the cooldown of it, so that way you can keep the fight in a rhythm, rather than you're being punished for bursting awesomely. Well, the first phase doesn't matter, but the second one, if you come back and you burst too hard, like now you're in a position where you have too many ads that you cannot kill unless you have the lightning crown, and so now you're like, well, good job, you did too good, so now you're punished for it. That's silly.
Yeah, I would have felt better if, like, let's say a transition happened to reset the energy of the item so that they're usable, or just make it so that you can pick up the item, because like when it's on the ground, you have to wait until you can pick it up again, and that alone to me is the worst part of that fight, is having to wait just to pick it up. It's like, can't I just pick it up but not be able to use it because it's on a cooldown or something like that? But then you kind of have to do, do you have to do both? I don't remember, because I barely picked up that spear. It's like, I know there's a wait time to pick it up. Yeah, I know there's a wait time to pick up the item, but was there also a wait time after you pick up the item and when you use it?
You know what? I don't remember. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I always picked up at the start of the fight. So we actually used it. So I'm sure people are like shocked to hear that, because I guess the consensus is that you don't use it at all. But we found that if you used it during the lightning phase, it's the only time you could kill it, and that's a problem in itself. I think the way to fix that is you could have just made the. I know the bubble is like you can see it, like you can see the healing meter on it, but if you could make it targetable, so like you can also DPS the bubble itself. Maybe that's the way to do it so it doesn't kill you, but like to have a mechanic that
we have to take more
damage poorly, they're like, oh, you're not taking enough damage, so we're gonna kill you. Like,
I think
and to not have any ability anywhere in the fight to actually do that, right? Like the only way to do it is if you took it outside into like the void area, have people to stand and take damage, or during the lightning. It's the only time you could ever take enough damage to not wipe the raid. I know they were told that in testing too, that thing doesn't work like that, and then it's something they never fix. So
I think that's it highlights what the whole theme of the raid was. It was meant to just kind of fuck with you. That's the way I feel about it. It's like, hey team, I want you to think of fights that will just subvert expectations and drive people bananas, because they have to do certain
troll mechanic
things.
Is a very clever idea. I like the idea of
it's like to get through this, you need to take a lot of damage. How's the best way to take a lot of damage? Do this thing that you always want to keep using, the crown. I don't know. It was a weird fight. It was a little weird fight with a lot of stuff going on at the same time. There's
a lot. The thing that makes me more, the reason we had a hard time with that fight, that I don't like when a fight feels like it's on the onus of the healers entirely, and I think that's the way that entire fight is built. Tanks don't really have to do that much. It's almost built in for you to do. Tank swap, whatever. DPS don't stand in the circle. Now soak this circle here. That's really it. But there's so much work on the healer's shoulders to carry that fight, and no one can help with that. There's nothing you can do. I can't take less damage by like not doing this thing or whatever. Like I'm taking the minimum amount of damage I can take as it is. So I don't fight like I feel bad for fights like that where they're kind of stuck of like, all right, well, you got like the 3 or 4 people. Like figure it out, because the rest of us are waiting on you to figure out, like, coordinate cooldowns, whatever it is. Again, I'm not a healer, and the Lord's work. But I feel bad when it's like, I can't do anything to help you. I'm doing everything I can already to take as little damage as I can. And that doesn't feel good either when that happens. I mean, for any fight.
But there's a measure of responsibility on us to take care of ourselves, using our utilities to take care of the team. I'm like swapping talents here and there to be like, okay, maybe I should use my judgment of thing here to help with the healing. I don't know if that's going to help any. So it's there was at least a little bit. There was a good bit for everyone to do. I felt pretty engaged during the fights. We're constantly tanking something unless all the ads happened to be dead, but there were really short windows for that. The frustrating moments were with those items because one, for tanks, you pretty much didn't use it, or you only used it once. But the times that we did use it, it was frustrating because it's like, okay, hey, there's the spear like all the way over there. It happens to be inside one of those healy those things that'll heal the boss. I'm like, okay, great. There goes 1% of the boss's health. This is not going to frustrate me at all. Things like that were frustrating. But I think it was just a challenge to have a sort of boss that felt like it was progression, even though we had the gear like from the pretty much from the get-go. From the start of the instance, we had what we needed in order to complete it. It was just we needed to mechanically do it.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine how it felt to be a Mythic Raider. To be like, okay, we're coming in here. There's nothing for me, but I guess I'm going to feel compelled to do this anyway.
Right. Yeah, if you want to talk about the compellingness of the COS, before we go though, I gotta say that if we have an issue with how Trident works, the healers have a much worse situation where you have to go in the void to even take the damage to drop it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have to there's times where you have to drop it in the void, but you can't go out there because it'll kill you. Like that's dumb. So,
I know that
there's even worse than ours. Ours can be just some bad RNG of where it gets dropped, but it's always still kind of within the arena. Where a healer, you almost purposely have to drop it in the void, and like that's
I know that like Mary had his whole method of walking in backwards, and he would get knocked back into one after another, and hopefully he wouldn't get knocked back too far, because he would knock himself back too far, be way out there, and then he would just die, which I thought was like super funny. Another method that I saw, because I read up on what people did afterwards. Like if you had a paladin or a druid or something, you would just taunt. You would just taunt the boss.
Ah, really?
You just take a couple hits from that and hopefully not get crit.
I love the cleverness of people that play this game. Like that's why I never would even have thought of that. You know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really come to my mind because we don't have. I think Nelia could have taunted.
Yeah, but, I don't know. I don't know if a healer monk has a taunt. Pardon me, Chad. If they do, I don't know.
I don't know. Classes.
Again, I don't. Yeah, healer classes. I don't even know what that is.
Not paladins, huh?
Right. I don't know what that is. If I'm not healing myself, I don't know what it is. But yeah, to me, it was so uncompelling because the gear, right? And if the gear was good, it might change everything. But it's not really. Like maybe, and this feels bad for the Mythic people, and I feel bad about that, but it wouldn't change anything. What if Unat and Cabal, what if they drop 425 gear? What if they, that's it? Or you make their little kiss curse things so good that people actually want them. I mean, I wouldn't mind some of the belt out of there is pretty good, or the weapon, but the weapon's actually lower than the weapon I have. So I would actually take like a loss for like this little kind of niche-y heal. It'd be cool to have, but it's still, stats matter in this game. They matter huge. And so if you're gonna give me these things, but I have to take a downgrade in my stats, it's detrimental. And to some classes, it's worse than others. I mean, I'm lucky as a tank that I can almost take whatever item level increase, and it's always better for me. And I really appreciate that. That's another reason that I like tank, is that it's less math to do.
Yeah.
I don't got to sim
what?
Oh God, don't want to. But yeah, some classes like there's 30. Man, like that time I got some random ring and it was like a 40 item level upgrade for one of ours, and they're like, it's like a 1% DPS loss. And I was like, it's 40 item levels. How is that not okay? That's stupid stuff.
I typically tell people, it's like, if it's that big of an item level increase, just think of like how much you'll be able to survive more shit. Because I know you're gonna get, because I know you're gonna get your ass blasted by something. So you might as well just take it, put it on anyway.
The mechanics are designed around you having a certain stamina as it is. And you're like, whatever.
Yeah, so it does get kind of wonky when I see someone, when we're doing alt runs and I see someone come in with like not a lot of HP, because I'll look at HP first and I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna get pounded to the ground. But then they're still like performing really well on the meters. I'm like, okay, they obviously know what they're doing when they're gearing, but man, that's scary.
Yeah, no, I understand from that standpoint. But I don't understand what's the point of. I know they gave it a buff and they kind of increased it. You know what? Here, what is the heroic item? It should be 410. 410. Like, all right, well, I get better stuff doing mythic champions than I do after the final boss. That's terrible. Like, what's the point of why not give people 420 or however high? I mean, we're gonna replace it in 8.2 anyway when that raid comes out. Why not just buff people? Who cares? Like, bring it to the cap.
That's a good point, but at the same time, I think that they should have something that, no, I
think somebody something to work for, right? That's why we play this game.
Yeah,
we chase the carrot. The carrot is the gearing treadmill.
Does it need to be geared out, or could it be like some like dope ass mount? Would that be enough for you?
Show me the mount in the raid.
Yeah,
do with it.
Yeah. There's none of that. It's crazy that there's so many. There's
Show me some kick-ass void transmog. Don't got that either.
Yeah.
Old god transmog.
That was probably the most disappointing thing about it, because I remember Blizzard was like, well, we're not going to do tier sets, ladies and gentlemen, but what we are going to do, we're going to give you gear that is thematic to the raid that it comes from. This is not thematic at all. It's all just stuff from Boda, and that was a real letdown. I mean, the weapons, they were unique. Whoop-de-doo. But I think they could and should have done something similar to Trial of Valor, where they gave you at the end a complete set that is a thematic thing 100%. For the raid, and ta-da! It doesn't have to be like great or fantastic, but as long as it was thematic, cool. I have a souvenir, because as a tank, I have none. I don't have a cool two-hander to bring home and use and sport and all that in the future. It's not going to mean anything to me. So, rewards-wise,
that would have fixed it. Yep.
Rewards-wise, it was pretty disappointing. Although I do think that the trinket that steals health and heals you is amazing. I love it. It's great. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it can be good. It's good in Mythic Plus on some things, right? I think that it can be misunderstood. It's good in a raid because you're always going to have people around you. But I think that there's a detriment when, especially like this week, is tyrannical, right? So the bosses do a lot of damage for you. But I tend to pick more ranged players. So there's sometimes where you could be the only person within, so you don't actually get any value because there's just not enough people around you to utilize it in a Mythic Plus, and that's fine, right? I like trinkets that are niche. Unfortunately, in a plus where you're stuck with your trinkets and you can't switch them out, I still think that feels bad. But that I get. So like fight by fight of like, oh, I'm gonna need my Buon Zombies bargain because like I can eat this one, thing that's gonna force me to die, but I eat that whole mechanic by myself and don't worry about it, or whatever it is, right? The haste trinkets or anything like that. The diamond trinket's my favorite, right? The thing's super OP.
Super lazy, but it's awesome. I love lazy. Those are the best.
It's super great for raids because you're like, I'm just off tanking, building up my bubble. Like, yeah, fantastic. Love it.
Yeah.
So.
The other rewards though, because I got everything, I think, except for the gloves.
I wouldn't know because I gave it to you. So sure.
Yeah. I don't think I got the gloves. The gloves are supposed to like give you some sort of like a small bubble, and you get haste while that bubble is up. So for a tank, it means nothing. Yeah. It's great for like DPS play. But there's another one that does like decent damage. It steals health, but you're not going to notice. But it does like 15-20k damage, and it's pretty. It is a not insignificant contributor to damage, but of course, as a tank, it's not important at all. That's why it's
damage matters.
Well, it's pretty inconsequential relative to like anything else that it could be using for that has like more secondaries or something like that.
In a raid context, sure, yeah.
But I mean, outside of raids, it's like, oh man, I feel like the goddamn Terminator. I'm stealing health from like tons of mobs at a time, and maybe we'll talk about we'll probably talk about 8.2 in the future and all that stuff later, because these are fun. I think we can probably pull off doing these a little bit more, but we should probably get to a final thing.
Sure.
What do you want it to be?
Let's see here.
Anything you want to get off your chest?
So if you don't want to talk about 8.2 now, well, you put me in a spot here. Like, I give a whole script of topics and things that we could discuss. And
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right
now. Here's what I think the issue they need to fix. That made this season of raiding feel, I'm not gonna say stressful. I got bored quick, and a lot of it's my own fault. A lot of it has to do with how gearing is now done in battle for Dazar'alor or whatever. So I was almost decked out and almost over 400 eye level before the raid even started, just because I play so much Mythic Plus. And I think that caused a huge detriment that I got bored in the raid fast because I didn't need anything in it. I'm looking for like one trinket. I didn't need any of the Azeroth armor in there. None of it. Like it's so much easier for me just to farm up Titan Residuum on my weekly caches or whatever it is, and go buy mythic armor. Why even bother from it? I'm not excited about the traits in Boda. Weren't good for tanks at all. I mean they
were good until they nerfed it.
Whatever the name is, I forgot the name of the one that you could heal
Bonded Souls.
Bonded Souls. Yeah, that was really good, but why nerf it? Make it Boda only. Because from Uldir, right? Uldir actually had traits that you wanted, and you could only get them from the raid. I don't think it applied in this. I could be wrong entirely.
No. They didn't have a. I forgot what. I forgot what. It was called.
I don't think there was a raid specific, talent or whatever.
Well, I think we're talking about different things. So I mean, there were things that were unique to the raid, like Bonded Souls, like whoop-de-doo. But Uldir had that thing where as long as you
laser matrix and all that.
Yeah, well, as long as you went into Uldir and killed a boss, then you would get like the stacking secondary buff. So that made it compelling to go in and at least wear a piece of Azeroth gear. But but I think you're right. Like I think that the traits that came from Boda just weren't cool enough. To outweigh what you were able to get from Mythic Plus stuff. Now, not everyone does Mythic Plus. I'm one of them. So it's like, hey, I'll take what I can get. But I think that there's a deeper I don't know if this is the problem, but there's a deeper issue in the mindset of players where it's like, okay, we have all these options to gear. I'm gonna go with this option to gear, which means that I don't really need to care about this other content. So like it's like in your case, you did a lot of Mythic Plus, you got a lot of gear. It's very good gear. And for you, the only recourse that would come from Boda or COS is that the gear needs to be demonstrably better somehow, either because there's some cool Azeroth traits or some cool effects, like from a trinket. Right. And there are some decent trinkets, but otherwise, at least from a tank perspective, there are certain things that we don't have to worry about, like secondary stats. It's like, okay, we can do better. That'll make us a good mythic raider, but at least for the level of play that we want to perform at, we wouldn't really feel that much of a difference. We'd feel more of a difference seeing folks die to fire than anything that would come from us, because the gearing threshold for us is so low, at least at that level. We don't really get to challenge ourselves until we go to Mythic Plus, because we can at least scale things up and it's more accessible for the most part. So I don't think we've seen what the raid traits are for the upcoming raid yet. We've seen the trinkets, and maybe we can take time at some point to talk about those, because I haven't taken a good look at them yet. I don't even think they're testable yet. But I think that would be fun. But what is it that you want
to? Yeah, I'm not a PTR person, but that's one thing I don't do. As much as I try to read about raid bosses and mechanics and things like that, I try to be surprised by the game when it comes out. So I just kind of look forward to the things. And I have seen kind of how Mekkatorque looks amazing. I'm a giant fan. Mad Max is my favorite series of all time.
Amazing.
And I just loved. I'm looking for environments, right? Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
I want to be. Everybody talks about how great Classic was, is because it was the sense of adventure from going out in the world that you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time we get an environment that's new, like that's where the compelling gameplay comes from to me, is the exploration and the not knowing what's behind every nook and cranny. And the more exciting that environment is, then the more engaged you are. But you're
it's cool.
Jungle again, more jungle. Or the desert or the swamp. That's what we have, right? We have jungle, desert, swamp.
No, this is really cool. Like I have not. I think I said this a couple times earlier, but I haven't logged in more PTR hours ever than I have in this patch, because there's so many different things to do, and I haven't even explored it all. If there's like a certain goal that you want, or like if you want like that crazy crab mount, there's going to be
Who doesn't want that crab mount? It goes sideways.
There's like I'll tell you now, because I'm gonna record the weekly like right after this. There's a shitload of work that you need to put into it, but at the same time, it's all kind of interconnected. So by the time you get that mount, you're gonna have so much other cool shit, like essences, gear, mounts, pets, toys, you name it, transmog, upgrades, all sorts of stuff. So by the time you get to that endpoint, you will have flying. You are going to have all these different things, and you're not going to realize it. Like, oh yeah, I did get all this stuff. Fucking sweet. Okay, cool. And Mekkatorque is a blast too. I'm still testing it out. There are things that I still need to double check. Like some of those, like the weapons are just crazy. It's like, hey, cool. There's a, this isn't much of a spoiler, but it's like, you're seeing some stuff. Okay, I'm gonna fight these elites because I want to farm for like parts. Oh, hey, cool. There's a weapon station that somebody else built. So I could just walk up to it, and I can pick up like this rocket pack that lets me fly temporarily, and I can pick up a flamethrower, and I could just go up to these bots and just flame the shit out of all these. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm super pumped now. No, I always want the best for this game, and I mean we still rag on it. We can, I said. You can hear in my voice sometimes the frustration I feel with this game, but you know what? I love this game more than any game I've ever played. It's still my favorite game, except for maybe Super Tech Mobile back in the day. But that's not the point. But I always just want the best for this game, and I people can rag on over all they want. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinions and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. I hope the best that they're doing something to bring people into the game that makes it engaging for them. The more people that play this game and the more people that love it, the more fun you have. That's the way this game is. If they could find a way, it goes back to what you say all the time. If you could find a way to bring people together socially, it just makes this game more fun. I feel really bad for whoever's out there just kind of floundering of like, man, this game sucks. By the way, almost all my Mythic Pluses I do are generally pugs. So I sympathize with those listeners who are like, this pug world sucks. I hate the Rate.io score. We can talk about that on its own merit. I have a lot of opinions about it. Spoiler, I'm actually more pro Rate.io than I am con, for sure, but there's problems with the system. But I just want people to play this game and love it. And if you're around people who are playing this game, even for something to do, you're still getting interaction and something more out of it than just like staring at your computer watching somebody waste half an hour of your time because they bailed on a key and now you're stuck. So get out there whatever you can. Soul's always willing to take his own people on. Understand there's there's some requirements of being in our guild. I am bound to give you shit if you're not the best player, but if you want to be better, I am always willing to help everyone. And so I'm not a good player, so don't be like, he's an elitist jerk asshole. But
no, go.
I want to help. I want to help people get better at this game, because the more you understand it, and the more that you can learn to push yourself or understand your character, your class, your rotation, whatever it is, even add-ons. Add-ons are huge. Understand how that works. If you can take an add-on, something like Weak Ores or whatever, that makes the game way easier for you. So if you're having a hard time with something, sometimes look at how you're set up. I mean, most of the time it's just something as simple as how do you do keybinds? And you're like, oh, you don't? Like, you can change your whole game by doing something really easy that people take for granted all the time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, sorry, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, like, I want to have the kind of WoW where people can feel welcome and people don't feel like they're going to be ostracized or put down because they're not good. There are a lot of reasons why I'm not good, and there are things that I have my shortcomings, and I'll fuck up and get everyone killed and all that stuff. But I want to be able to continue living in a WoW where we can just pick ourselves up and learn from these things, and then later on just kind of laugh it off and talk about how dumb we were about the thing that we screwed up on. It's a process. It's not, and it's not entirely about succeeding at killing the boss. Just like what a lot of classic WoW fans are talking right now. It's about the journey. And for me, it's not the journey from 1 to 60 or 1 to 120 or whatever the heck level it is. It's the journey that you take with the people that are around you. There's so much focus in what Blizzard. There's so much Blizzard focus in part of Blizzard with trying to address pugs and make that experience a little bit better. And there's add-ons to support that and everything. But with I'm just going to say it's the failure of the community system. It's so important, Blizz, that guilds are celebrated and put at the forefront. Give people a reason, or remind people how good a guild can be. And now, not every guild is going to be perfect. They fall apart
a lot of
constantly.
Toxic guilds out there. Yeah, it happens, right? But find the right level for you. Like if you only want to play at normal level, there's guilds that just do normal like this. There's a level for you. Just you can't give up on it, and you gotta find your niche. And it's just sad. Like as much as people, you know what? Here's my review so far of all of Battle for Azeroth. That for all the shortcomings the expansion has, if they would have done the community system right, I don't think people would have noticed half of them.
No, they wouldn't, because people would be stuck just like us. Yep. We live in a bubble.
100%. Yep.
We live in a bubble. We don't feel the things that people feel. Like, we regularly read from forums out of fun and be like, yeah, that doesn't happen to us. Wow, these poor people. So if Blizzard just kind of realized that and told themselves, hey, you know what, let's try to find ways for people to avoid that kind of situation. Where can they go from that? And I keep saying it, all it takes is to have a good in-game search system for communities or guilds, for people to find guilds or for guilds to find people. That's all it takes. Go in that direction, Blizzard, and you're going to find that people are going to jump all over that because it's in-game, it's in-house, it's easy to find and access. And it'll give people a chance to meet new people, especially the kind of people that raid at their schedule, that raid at their level. How
hard would that be? If each guild can put in their times of this is when we raid, and you can scroll through it. Like, oh, I'm looking for a heroic guild. I don't see how hard this is. It cannot be that difficult.
No, I agree. I mean, there are really extensive things that could be done. Like let's say if Google got in on this, Google would be able to find out exactly when we raid as a group, what the times that we do things, the rate at which we gear, and blah blah blah. And then from that, there could be search options that's like, hey, I'm a casual, I raid at this time, and then it'll be able to pull up all sorts of results. It's like, okay, here's the people that are looking that raid around this time. These are the classes that they have, and all that stuff. Having stronger search options would just blow people away, and get people to not just look for a pug, but look for a place to call home. Right.
Yeah. If you got that, it makes this game home for you. That to have that comfort net, right? No matter what. And so and it puts you in a position where people can make mistakes, and they can grow out of that. Where in the pug world. One botch. I don't know you from Adam. But you know what? You died to that same mechanic twice. I don't know anything about you, but you know what? You could be a great player and just having an off day. That's That's all I ever ask is that people, you may not be a great player at all, but as long as you try to get better and you work at it, then I'm always there for anybody. I appreciate that mentality. And if you say you're the best player there is, then I don't want to play with you because I guarantee you're not.
I don't know that one guy. What was his name? Topping meters or topping charts?
So he lived up to his name. Good on him. I had to. We were filling a park for Mythic champs, and there's a rogue named Topping Charts, and I was like, let's see if he lives up to it. You know what? He did. He met and exceeded my expectations. Good on that guy.
I was even looking because I was like, okay, he's looking low right now. He's not. He's not top. He's not top. But then, like, I'd say like 60% way through, boop! All of a sudden, he just kind of jumped up there. I was like, wow, what a hacker!
Takes a lot of hubris to make that your name, but he lived up to the hype. That's hard to do.
I imagine that if he didn't, he would name change immediately, and
I would hope so, but I doubt it. Yeah, there's plenty of characters out there that have very similar names, and you're like, oh, I see at the bottom of the charts. I just got done with a pug right now, and this guy's name was Reht, Rhett. And so the first thing he asked when we were forming a group, he's like, hey, you need to make sure to get a battle res. And so like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. So we got a battle res. It turned out he wanted a battle res because he's the one that died all the time and needed res. And he died 4 times to like the most simplest, like, don't stand as mechanic. And at the end, he ended up leaving the group. I don't know, embarrassment? I'm not sure. But he just died again. And I just typed dude. And he just left the group. And so I just wrote, this should change his name to Wrecked. Everybody just laughed. Like, but maybe that guy is a good player. I don't know. All I know him by is his IO score and his item level. But, in that 15 minutes of time that he wasted for me, you never want to see him again. But maybe in a guild, maybe that guy's good.
Yeah.
And he can have an opportunity to grow or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he's just the Joker. Yeah. He tends to die a lot, but then he's otherwise cool to hang out with and get along with. And, he otherwise.
He lagged out in the get behind the boss part, and he just didn't. That happens to me all the time. Like, you just get stuck on some stupid frame rate. You lag out at that wrong moment, and you're like, well, I'm dead. It happens to me all the time.
It sucks because WoW these days is full of unforgiveness because we have the opportunity to do it. Yep. That's what being able to pull across a pool of all players throughout the entire region. That's what it allows. WoW in classic WoW does not. You can sort of have a reputation. I mean, I don't buy into that because I played through it, and at least the way that I played, I didn't give a shit about anybody. No one gave a shit about me because I just soloed stuff. But WoW needs to go back to that. And the community is toxic because there is no in-game community. And if they can promote that and push it and make it work and make it accessible for people, much more accessible for people, then it could go a long way. So
yeah, I agree.
Closing thoughts.
Let's hope for the best.
For now.
Those are my closing thoughts. Like, I hope for the best. I hope this game continues. I hope 8.2 is amazing. Everyone comes back and we fixed all these issues. I hope that they fix the community system and bring people in and guilds get better and people aren't stuck out there in the toxic guild that they hate and then they're only there because they don't feel like there is any other option of like, oh, well, I leave this guild, I go back to that wasteland of trying to pug and trying to find another group to be with. Like, it's all about finding the right fit in the right situation. And maybe you're not in the right situation now, but make it easier to find a better situation for you. And that's really frustrating. And I totally sympathize with any player that has those feelings of this game sucks because every time I try to get in a group, I'm not sure what to do. I want to learn. I want to get better at these things. And, I die all the time. We have there's a guy in our guild who, initially I don't think was that great of a player, but it's clear that he's progressing and learning and doing things. And I fully support that all the way to put yourself in a position where, you weren't comfortable, but you wanted to get there. You had a goal and you moved toward it. I applaud that 100%. And like, that's the type of players that everyone needs. And I think most people, it's built into them. They want to, that's human nature to want to do better. But to come in and feel like you can't because you're just so afraid of making a mistake. And maybe that's the tank mentality. I'm so used to taking crap all the time that it's my fault. Like, if a pug goes wrong, it's the tank's fault. I'm okay with that. I've lived with it for 14 years or whatever long it's been. no skin off my back. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But not everyone can handle that type of criticism. So it's hard to overcome that. Yeah. And I understand. And I like I said, I super applaud people trying to get over that kind of thing.
8.2 isn't going to solve the whole social aspect and the community aspect of WoW.
Not at all.
It's not going to address the big issues that people have with class progression and the leveling process and
These are all issues we can talk about later.
Yeah,
but it will give me new environments. Mm-hmm. New environments. But not staring at the same brick temple.
and it's just big. Like this feels like it's a patch that because it introduces these buttons and stuff, it redefines to me it almost redefines the game, or it redefines the expansion. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the public at large interacts with it, and how they take all that stuff in, and see how they take in all these essences, because it makes the game feel a little bit different, and I think that's something that people will appreciate. But I'm more looking forward to BlizzCon and the next expansion and see what the heck else we have next. So
you're already looking for the next. See, you've already saw past battle. You're done already. You're waiting.
That's from the analyst, content creator perspective. Like I'm always looking forward to seeing what's next.
I get it
and all that. But no, I haven't written it off. I'm still enjoying myself. I'm still on pretty much every day doing things, even though it's at a minimum. But it's because I'm also trying to cover stuff. I mean, I've been living in 8.2 for like the past 2 or 3 weeks now. So, and I'll tell you this, I'm eager to do it all over again once this stuff goes live, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm gonna definitely look forward to building myself up, powering up these essences, getting these crazy ass mounts and all that stuff. And I guess that'll be it from now. But we'll definitely talk about more stuff on this list, including what to look forward to in 8.2 with some of these essences. Maybe we can take a look at those and the upcoming trinkets and other fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to hear it too when they release what the new affixes are going to be. I'm curious how that thing's going to work out. I've heard some mild. But yeah, by all means, let's do it again. And I want to hear if Sylvanas, anything actually happens with that. Where are they taking her character? As a fan of Sylvanas is my war chief. I'm so worried about them jacking this up. I'm still by her side for all the negative that's happened so far. I'm still tracking that they're gonna turn this around.
I just to me, I'm disconnected from it. I feel dispassionate about it, but I'm just
not a
looking
person
forward.
Either. Yeah, I'm not super into it, but
I'm just looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah, if this is all just a simple ruse to allow Thrall or Chris Metz in this case to take some time off and then come back to the game, I would be really frustrated if that was the only thing. I was he just needed a break, so we wrote him out of the story just to bring him back again.
Temporary retirement, whatever. I just want to do stuff.
But to flush a character that's been my favorite throughout this entire game, that's one of the things that got me into this initially. It was oh man, Sylvanas, that is one of the coolest characters. Her backstory is so intriguing and so interesting. If they flush this down the toilet and shit the bed like a Game of Thrones, I'd be you know what? I'm done. I'm done. You're building an arc, and then you did a whole a 90-degree turn at the last second just to make it fit your story. I would be really frustrated with that.
Well, tomorrow's another day, man. So let's see, dude.
All right.
This is my co-tank, my probably better half. Thanks, dude, for coming. This is a lot of fun. Thanks.
Yeah, Shad's my name, by the way. We didn't even.
We said that at some point.
Did we? I don't even know anymore. So long.
No, this was cool. It was cool just talking and having a chat.
I love it. Like I said, I love this game so much, man. I could talk about it 24/7. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully, oh my God, if you could hear me drinking coffee, I am super embarrassed now.
That's what the magic of editing. That's what the magic of editing is for.
If you can hear that, listening to people drink or eat is one of the worst. So I apologize in advance. If anybody even got this far, but they didn't.
Yeah, don't worry. I've been editing out my burps and all that. Or I'm going to edit out, I'm sure I burped a lot. Okay. So don't worry about it.
I thought you were doing push talks. That's fine.
Nope. Don't worry about it. So.
All right. Later, Soul.
All right,
appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks. See you, man.
Bye. Bye.